Hey everyone, welcome to the ULCS third place and finals recap brought to you by Eye of the Watchers, giving you all the support and insight you need to get hyped about League of Legends esports. I will be your host for tonight, Manny. To my sides, I have Austin and Rhino. How's it going, guys?
What's going
Going
on,
pretty good.
lads?
Hell yeah. I'm glad to hear. And hey, we're here. ELCS is finally concluded, as well as NA. And I thought it was a interesting side from EU in comparison to the stomps we saw from NA.
Oh yeah.
But
Definitely.
we'll start with the third place match, which is Splyce versus Vitality. Splyce ended up winning 3-2, and I don't know. Well, let's start, Rhino. I know you're a Splyce fan. You've been talking to me about this team day one, week
This
one. You've been like, hey, even before this podcast started in EU, you just been telling me, man, Splyce, what's up?
low
What do
key
you think?
shout out to Marty Laser, dude. I tweeted at him the picture of my fantasy draft, and I'm pretty sure I had 4 of the 5 players on Splyce on it. So just putting that out there. But I mean, I think Kabi is one of the most underrated AD carries in the region. I think he's under the shadow of Reckless.
Yeah.
Reckless, you want to call him Reckless?
Mhm.
I call him Reckless. I don't know if that's the. It's always like whatever up in the air about that, but I think Kabi is a monster. I think he's a goddamn carry lord. So I think if you give him items, he seems like the AD carry that if you get him ahead, he knows how to close out a game. So I like Kabi, and the big question marks for me on that team were Xerxes and Odo. And I feel as though if Xerxes and Odo Omne can peel for Kabi, and Kasing can set up for Kabi, I think the game's just donezo gunzo.
That's fair. That's fair. I mean, they did have a really good series, but Austin, what was your take? We kind of talked about last week. Splyce versus Vitality. We had the predictions that Splyce would take it a lot easier than what happened. Where did you see Vitality kind of like surprise at least us in that aspect?
Gilius hit a smite. He hit a 50-50 smite. And I mean him
Dude,
hitting that smite turned that game for him, and they were like, okay, we're gonna win now. And like it's something that he has been known not to do ever. Really, his 50-50 smites are like a 1 in 300 maybe. But he hit it, which surprised me. But still, Niski came out to play. Like, he came out hard for Splyce. And it's like he's shown himself in the regular season not as great, during the regular season. But then here we go leading up to playoffs and into playoffs. Like, he's just kind of wrecking in mid. And then you set that up with your bottom lane down there. And, between those two lanes, you're just winning the games. Now, this was closer than I expected. Maybe a little bit of Yamato Cannon got him, hyped up and excited. I don't know. But, like, it was just different because like the games were close, and from what I saw Vitality playing Fnatic and what I saw Splyce playing G2, I thought Splyce was going to take it and run away.
Yeah, and I think something that I remembered, like just from watching the games and stuff, like it did start close, right? 1-1, and then 2-1 in favor of Vitality, and then those last two games were actually really dominating from Splyce, and I think actually like the 3 games that Splyce won were really thanks to like Niski, right? I think Niski like. So I'm gonna call you out, Rhino, because out of the 5 players of Splyce, the one you did not pick up was the mid laner Niski, which, in all favor, like he didn't have the best split in terms of regular season, but like for this matchup, he really outshined, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
his Cassiopeia was crazy good against Jasuki. Like, and he's rookie of the split. Like, he can play, but he really like outshined, I think, like in the mid lane.
I'm gonna chance to defend myself right now because we were talking about the beginning of the split thoughts, man, and I didn't think anything of Niski, but I was super surprised in the series. Like, I think I think Niski and Kabi both put him on the bag because I mean, if you look at the
Yeah, for
stat
sure.
line also for Kabi for those games, the games that they won, Kabi put up some insane
Oh yeah,
numbers.
no, for sure.
So like,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a duo effort. Like, I think the carries definitely carry this like those games, man. Like I don't know. Niski, I think Niski's a good player, and I'm not shitting on Niski. I just had no expectations of him because the only times I got to watch him or do it really anything dominant was his short little stint in NA. That's really it.
Yeah, where he kind of like revitalized Envy for a couple weeks to get them enough
Yeah,
into like
yeah.
playoffs, and then
Mm-hmm.
they just faltered out. So I had been following Niski just because he was part of the Fnatic Academy that ended up, promoting and then had to disband, obviously, because of how EU plays. But I think Niski is such a strong player that just I think he was just having a tough split, right? And even in the semifinals, he struggled with the Azir pick. That was so dominant for a lot of people. And they kind of like fell short against G2, 3-1. But we still thought like Splyce was stronger than Vitality. But I do
Mm-hmm.
want to give a lot of props to Vitality. I
Mhm.
think we should talk a little bit more about them because these it's kind of like a class of rookies, right? And Cabochard like coming into the scene and really kind of like putting their stamp on it, right? I don't think really people imagine them being top four, right? Like they kind of
No.
like took the place of maybe an H2K, maybe in Misfits, maybe a Unicorns of Love, right? And I thought it was really fascinating. And I don't know what maybe Austin, like what are your thoughts on the rest of we talk about Gilius, but what are your thoughts on everyone else?
I mean, Jizuke obviously showing that he's dominant, especially on his Talia. I mean, hands down, probably the best Talia around. But he's also shown that if he gets tilted in a game a little bit, he's also Vitality's weak link. And so you saw him against, Fnatic when they put pressure on him and like he just kind of faltered and you could even hear it in some of the game chat where Fnatic was ruining him and he was just like, I can't see anything. I have no vision. And he was, left, right, center. He was just being taken out and they kind of faltered. Um, but in the games where he does play well, he shines. So he's kind of a hit or miss. Um, Cabo is kind of he's there. He holds his lane for the most part. Like you don't really see him shining. He just does what he needs to do. Tries not to feed the other top laner as best as possible, and like he's there. But like for a team of rookies going into this whole split, no one was expecting much. They're like, they were probably coming in as what would be seen as maybe the Golden Guardians of NA, or maybe a little bit better than that. But seen as like, we aren't expecting much of you, but we want to see you guys grow. Um, but they turned out to surprise everybody and be like, no, we're here to win. And, they fought hard for it. And, they made it to playoffs, made it in, went to semis, and ending up in, fourth place. That's not bad for a rookie team.
Mhm.
Yeah. And Rhino, what are your like thoughts? Like, as usually a support main and bot centric guy, we've talked a lot about bot lanes and such in NA and stuff. What are your thoughts about the Vitality bot lane? Because they're I feel like they're kind of like the innovative type of guys that
I agree with you. I think Mini Troopucks and Jack Troll are definitely the sort of like I picture Vitality as like justice, blind justice, and whenever like the scales get so heavy, Mini Tropucks and Jack Troll just have to carry so hard. Like Mini Tropucks was putting up some pretty nutty numbers on Jinx. Like he was doing some serious work, and I think that like the inherent synergy between Mini Tropucks and Jack Trolls is pretty good. I'd like to see where that goes further. So I mean, the team looks pretty consistent. I think the games that they do really well with, I think maybe playing a little bit more around Mini Tropucks and Jack Troll might be better for their play style. I'm not really very familiar with Vitality because I think that I got behind the Jizuki hype when he first was smacking kids around. But other than that, man, I think that there's so much hype around Jizuke, but I think the bot lane's actually really honestly where most of their pressure becomes, because I think maybe to see Gilius play much more around bot side, I think that would be incredibly proficient for Jack Troll and Mini Triplex to get ahead.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, again, I think that's also like the growing, we've thrown this term around before, like the growing pains of a team, right? But I think with Vitality, they had an amazing first half of the season. They kind of slumped a little as the old guard started surging back up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of similar scenario as Echo Fox, maybe not a fall as hard, but like similar in that regard. But yeah, I think that they're still fighting hard, and I think this team is going to be a force to be reckoned with in summer, especially knowing Yamato Cannon. And his I think he's a really smart coach, and I think he's one of the best people to like help these rookies kind of like evolve into great players that can end up achieving a lot for EU. Especially like yeah, this is their first split. Like, I think the top two, I'm not sure exactly how the ballot ended, but I think the top two rookies of the split were Jasuke and Mini Trupac. So it's like maybe Sheriff was there, but I am not 100% on that. But yeah, I think I don't know. I mean, going back, Rhino, this is your first time in the EU side of Ewatch. So like what were your thoughts going into Splyce? Did you think Splyce had definitely the upper hand? Did you think it was going to be as close, or like where did you see the series in comparison to how it ended up being?
I mean, at least my predictions were that Splyce were gonna win the series. I didn't really have a specific number in mind.
Right.
Probably 3-2 would have been pretty close, because I still think that Vitality is I don't want to say versatile, but they're spontaneous enough where it might be a problem for Splyce, because I think there's some clear early to mid game transition growing pains out of Xerxes and Odo, where I feel like they are sometimes the problems with the roster. But I do think that when Xerxes and Odo are on their game, the team looks great.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I love the one thing I've loved about Xerxes when like he was part of Unicorns of Love last year was, hey, what's a crazy champion that just came out that we might be able to play? Warwick? Fuck, I'll lock that shit in. You had him play Kane, right? Like he's kind of like the innovator, right? But I did feel like, especially even last year, he's kind of like he does this crazy stuff, but sometimes he doesn't do like the simple, like consistent things. And I feel like some of the games he was actually slowed down a bit because of that. Earlier in the series, right? He was kind of like attacked, and Gilius was able to be everywhere, right? Like that first game, I just remember Gilius was like all over the map. Like Austin, you mentioned that, he hit a 50-50 smite, right? And it's just like, holy shit, right? Like Gilius did this,
And honestly,
it's like he, won a scratcher. Like he had a scratcher's ticket and he scratched it, and he won a free scratcher's ticket, giving them, okay, we got one game, but they didn't get third place. He had the one that would push this series just a little bit further on.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that.
It didn't quite hit the jackpot.
Yeah, he didn't. Yeah, he
Right.
didn't exactly get it. But I also think that Xerxes, at least in my opinion, I think is a very much so a team atmosphere mood player, and I think he feeds his energy off of how the game's going, right? So I think he's very
Right.
much so. I don't want to say emotion based, but he definitely gets affected by it, and I think that it's really weird because I feel Xerxes is like sort of like a quiet, very like really reserved kind of person. It's really interesting to see how a big personality like Gilius goes up against somebody like Xerxes, and then I think I kind of give props to Xerxes for not tilting after the couple games that they lost and bringing the series around.
Yeah, and I mean, I think also someone that was huge part of that was also Kasing, right? I mean, everyone knows of the Kasing effect. We even know of that in NA, right? Yeah. He's like, I'll go to TSM, fuck it, we'll win, right?
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah. Well,
that's just Kasing, right? He's such a funny guy, lovable, and I think, like you said, he plays part of helping that team morale, right? Like, kind of like bringing it all together. So I feel like Splyce is kind of like that happy harmony, right?
Yeah.
Of like, you know, Niski can show up. I think he is a solid mid laner. He might not always be like the like the performance he had, right? Of like god tier like mid laner. Kobe, I think Krabi, he is really good, right? He's young talent that like Danish again. You know, it was like how many Danes are in each team. Let's see who will win. But I definitely think saying like helps out the team. You know, he has like that great chemistry with everyone, and I'm excited for Splyce. I feel like Splyce finally landed. You know, they went to Worlds 2 years ago, and it was like a decent roster. I wasn't convinced on the roster back then, right? But I feel like this year it's like one of those times where I'm like, this could be a team that could actually represent decently. Right?
Yeah, this is a franchise team, in my opinion. Exactly. I think this is a franchise team that if you grow with the proper staff, like, I think this is something that could be something really great. Like, you work on the consistency with Odo, Xerxes, and like I said, like, and I think, in my opinion, I think Kabi is the biggest, or I should say, biggest up and coming franchisable player.
Yeah.
I think he's the person that you build teams around. He's like the Sneaky of EU. Right? Maybe not so much the following and the personality, but I think like just from a consistency, from a consistency perspective, like, he's somebody you always build a team around, or at least an AD carry that you always build a team around. Like, I have nothing but high hopes for Kabi and Splyce in the next split in the coming years. I think it's a great organization, and I think they really have themselves like a real franchisable team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Austin.
I just as closing, I feel that Splyce, like, you know, they took third. It may not have been the place that they wanted to take in the playoffs, but, you know, they at least got third. But this is going to motivate them for Summer Split. Summer Split, they're going to be hungry. They're going to be wanting that first place spot.
I agree.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, again, they showed that they have kind of like the fight to be at least top 4, right?
Right.
I think we should at least see them in a top 4 scenario.